episode 3 of the CyberWire. Absolutely thrilled to welcome Eran Sinai. He is founder of ID Seal. And yeah, thank you very much for coming on today. You obviously had a very unique way of getting into the cybersecurity world, and definitely excited to kind of dive into your story. So I'll let you take over, and if you don't mind, I'd love to have a little bit of an intro.
Hi, thank you, Katie, for having me. I'm very happy to be here, so I appreciate you taking the time and getting me on board. So, yeah, I think we all have our funny and interesting journey, whether we like it or not, right? So it just happens. And mine was in particular interesting when we're talking about the field we're in, right? So, who knew? But eventually, it led the situation and circumstance that led to the fact that back in 2008, I underwent a kidney transplant, and my wife at that time um, ended up being my donor. And yeah, it's quite a process. It's not a simple thing to do. Always very healthy. It was from an injury from a long time ago, war injury, whatever, doesn't matter. But the bottom line is that what happened is that a year later, we went to buy her a car, and we lived in San Diego at the time, and we went to buy her a car, and I remember sitting in the dealership, and they pull her credit like they do here in the States to see someone's financial wealthiness, or to see how are their finances. And the lady from the dealership came back to us and said, Ron, I can't get Maria's credit. And I said, why is that? And she said, well, according to the credit bureaus, she's deceased. Uh, so
Crazy.
Crazy. So I remember we looked, and I looked and I said, she's sitting right here. I mean, you can see her. I don't remember her not being here. We were joking, thought it was funny, but apparently, while she was in the hospital with me, someone must have stolen her identity, her medical records, and used that to literally get treatments, medication, doctor visits. And once they started getting the uh, bills back, and with the copays to send money, someone wrote on the bill deceased and send it back. And it was quite shocking. Let me tell you, it was quite shocking. We had to, lucky. I mean, yeah, I was lucky she was there, but she was lucky in a sense that I knew what to do. It's always been kind of my field, this world, and we literally had to go to Social Security and get a letter, which I still have, which they don't even give you anymore. You can't get it. It's called Alive and Well. And the letter had to testify that she is alive and not deceased. Today, you won't be able to get that because so many dead people come back alive, and they don't know that you're the real person or not to come to get that statement. So you can't even get that statement anymore. But anyway, so from here to there, it took 6 months. We were able to bring her back to life, restore her credit, and get her back to be among us, the living. And and from that day, I remember thinking to myself, what can I do to help people make sure something like that doesn't happen to them?
Yeah.
And because what we went through, again, even though I knew what needed to get done, let me tell you, it is 6 months of really living under pressure, uncomfortable. It's not a great feeling. It really isn't. That you
Yeah.
are like a zombie. Like you're literally a zombie. You literally live like a zombie, and you don't know that you are, but you're a zombie. And so anyway, so that was the beginning of my journey, and getting into the identity theft protection, the cyber privacy, and it became like a life mission, I think, to educate and bring awareness. So,
No, and rightly so.
yeah,
It's
exactly.
you've got to think it took you guys going to get kind of the a car out, or utilizing credit to be able to realize that, and arguably a really scary prospect that I think kind of, if it wasn't for that situation or you weren't doing that, it may have been even longer that you didn't
That's
realize
right.
that this had kind of happened. And exactly like you mentioned, it's not a quick fix, and there's a lot of people out there that don't know what to do. So what an unreal kind of way to I suppose be what really helps you build kind of what you have done over the past kind of 15 years or so throughout your career. And I mean, we'll definitely circle back to this because I think there's a lot of exciting things to unpick, but I'd be really kind of interested because obviously since 2008, the cybersecurity landscape has evolved significantly. It's very, very different world. I mean, kind of, coming in and building ID Seal and obviously focusing around kind of the identity theft. And I suppose going into that world where you say, actually, it's really hard to get, say, that information or that document now because there's so many bad guys out there. What have you kind of had to do to be able to stay up to date with this ever changing market?
It's a very interesting question because the only way to stay ahead of the curve is to be part of it and to go to places where people don't go on a regular basis. And, it's kind of, they say, for the police to monitor the streets, to make sure crime doesn't get out, they have to go to the bad areas to make sure they
Yeah,
control it right there, right? Same thing, believe it or not, I tend to go and visit, shouldn't be saying it out loud, but I tend to go and visit the dark web from time to time just to see what's up in the market. What are people
yeah,
doing out there? What are they selling? What are they buying? Who's selling what? And you'll be amazed what you can buy today. I mean, okay, 2008, they stole your paperwork. I mean, I'll go back to the basics. Even today, what's mind-boggling, you go to the doctor, they give you a form here in the States, and on the form it says social security number, and people are so oblivion that they just put the social security number. And what does the professional at the office, the doctor's office, does? He takes the paperwork and puts it in the drawer. Now your social
yeah,
is sitting there and all your private information is sitting there, and people are just still not aware. So if that was 15 years ago, some things never changed, something haven't changed, and some things have gotten worse, right? So
yeah,
if you're talking about 15 years ago, okay, they stole your paperwork, maybe they went to the garbage and for the dumpster and picked up paperwork. It was a very common thing to do, and your mail, and stole your mail. Uh,
yeah,
Today it's so much more sophisticated, right? I mean,
yeah,
deep fake, you have, I mean, and we're talking about what can be done. I mean, even think about quantum computers and quantum technology that's coming up. It's going to be so much more difficult to monitor, and it's kind of, so back to your question, yeah, you have to always try to stay ahead and to see where are things coming from. How does a hacker things? What would they do now? Being that you can go on the dark web and buy deep fake technology for a few $100 and create incredible things, which will allow you to pretend you're someone else, and using your face recognitions from that deep fake that you're creating so you can get into someone's bank account.
yeah,
It's pretty
yeah,
scary. It's pretty scary.
yeah.
So that's what I do. I go out there and look for deals.
Yeah. Hey, you got to stay ahead of the curve somehow. You got to
Yes.
know what the bad guys are up to, and I think that's a key thing. And it can start as simply as even in kind of the day-to-day modern workspace. Like you look at kind of ransomware, for example. But we get it. We had one of the guys in the office, and where kind of someone on his team historically, not here thankfully, but kind of you got one of those messages where the MD of the business had messaged them. They were brand new to the role, kind of saying, "Oh, I'm running late to this meeting. I need these Amazon vouchers buying." So naturally, kind of he clicks on the link, buys hundreds of pounds worth of these Amazon vouchers, has to input his data and stuff on things. And in reality, obviously, it's someone else completely kind of that's reaching out. But even just kind of the effort, the research people are going to at that bare minimum level. Never mind when you look at how much security has progressed, and you talk about things like deepfakes. I suppose it's pretty terrifying. And obviously identity theft has been a main focus for you, and understandably so. It's a huge kind of reason as to why you have built what you have. But with all this product development, it's arguably as big of a problem as ever. As you kind of mentioned there, there's things that just haven't really evolved or changed while the technology has, or at least while the technology that the bad guys have. So I mean, kind of, what do you think are some of the biggest challenges that we're facing as to why maybe people aren't quite implementing the security measures that they should be to help prevent these things from happening?
I often think to myself, why are people so complacent and with being where they are? Honestly, I think the first thing is that we as human being thinks is like, oh, it's not going to happen to me, right? It's always that it's not going to happen to me thing. I have a friend that it happened. I have a cousin. I have an uncle. Everyone knows someone that it happened, but to them it's not going to happen. So I think that's the first misconception, right? And that's the scariest part. Um, but other than that, I think what people do not realize that, look, your information is out there. Period. It
Yeah,
is not much you can do about it. It's not if. I always say it's not if, it's when it's going to happen to you, right?
yeah,
And you can be oblivion to things. And I'm not saying, look, we want to enjoy life, we want to live life, we want to continue. We do shopping. When we were kids, you grow up, you leave money in an envelope outside the door to the milkman. Worst come to worst, someone's going to steal the envelope. A kid that's going to play naughty, come and steal your milk with the envelope, right? Today, I hate to say it, but you sit in your bathroom and order groceries, right? But you leave everything, a trace of digital trace behind you,
yeah,
right? And people don't realize that that's what life is about. Your kids jump on the computer, you're on the computer, you have the Internet of Things. I mean, everything at home now is controlled from your phone.
yeah,
And what about that? How are you going to secure your home? I mean, how are you going to secure everything that you do? And I think that's what frustrates me, talking to people, and they're all, yeah, no, I'm fine, I'm fine, and they use the same password. Believe it or not, people still use the same password for everything. And I even did a little while back, I did a little research, and there was a time period that people say that when you use a password, you may want to use a phrase rather than just something else, because rather than like your regular password, because a phrase for bots is much harder to manipulate than a
yeah,
regular password, right? So I tell people, look, even at home, for example, when you have your Wi-Fi at home, you set it up. Don't put your last name on your Wi-Fi at home. Call it something else. Why does it have to be your name? So people, you are talking, look, thieves are always going to be thieves, right? But
yeah,
if I'm a thief and I go to your door and it's locked, I may not want to spend, unless you're someone special, I may want to not want to try to break in the lock and pick the lock. I'll go to the next house when the door is open.
yeah,
Same thing
yeah,
here. That's
yeah,
the same thing here. I say, lock your doors. Be proactive, not reactive, and
absolutely.
try to do things with respect for yourself before anything
Yeah,
else.
yeah. For sure. Prevention always better than a cure, isn't it? I suppose
That's
it's
right.
it's following the famous tale, but I think it kind of is exactly what you say there. I think it's that, oh, it's not going to happen to me, and I suppose it's because so many day to day individuals who maybe don't have exposure to the world of cybersecurity in the depth that people that work in this industry do, they don't realize how at risk they are of things like identity theft or kind of, just any kind of, I suppose, like data breach or anything that they could almost be causing. But I suppose, what do you think kind of needs to change in the industry for people to recognize that, hey, you actually need to start locking your doors, even if you're kind of, you're just living your day to day life?
I think the first thing is the education and awareness, right?
Yeah.
I think most companies use the tactics of uh, fear, instilling fear in us. And I think, you know, if we go back to the news, when we grew up, you open the news to see what's happening. Today, you open the news to see what's true, right?
Yeah.
You don't even know what's true anymore when you look at the news today because it's so insane, right? So people don't know there's overwhelming amount of information out there, right?
Yeah.
People are bombarded with watch this, watch that, watch this email, watch that email, and people are really overwhelmed. And I think we got to go back to the basics and educate people and maybe create educational programs or resources that will help people understand the importance of cybersecurity. It could be
Yeah.
workshop, it could be online courses, it could be all kind of informative content to the general public, something that people will get it, and you know, samples or real life examples always work best, in my opinion, right? And
Yeah.
I think that'd be the first thing, and I think but it also for us as parents and I think it's important to explain to our kids and to be a little bit more how would I say aware of the surrounding, you know,
Yeah.
aware of the surrounding. And you know, people still sit and work in coffee shops, and I'm fascinated, for example, uh, that people don't use VPN when they work in public, right? And people maybe don't understand the need. And you know, we did a while back. We did something very interesting. I'll tell you a quick story. So we had some convention, and I was speaking at some event, and we went around and put a lot of routers throughout, and called it whatever name,
Yeah.
and people, and it was free Wi-Fi. So when I spoke, I said, "How many of you connected to so and so Wi-Fi?" Um, and a lot of people raised their hand because it was free, right?
Yeah.
And then I said, "Okay, how many of you are using VPN?" Um, and I would say probably less than 10% of the people that raised their hand. I said, "Look, here is the situation. I set up this Wi-Fi for everyone here, right? I got routers. I set up the Wi-Fi just for a point to show you guys how vulnerable you are. Because now, if I wanted, I could have gotten to each one of your devices and got into it and got from it whatever I wanted. Now, if you use VPN, I would still see that you logged into the system and you're using my Wi-Fi, but the VPN serves as a tunnel, right? Nothing goes out, nothing comes in, and you would have been protected. So I think going out there, sitting in public, especially in the world that everyone works remotely and work from home and work from coffee shop and travels, you need to be aware. And it's on us employers, or it's on us parents or individual to train each other to like use VPN. And but and again, now you have to. But then, and I know I keep talking about it, but now you get to the point of okay, which VPN should I use? Some of them take your information and use it. Some of them don't. So you see, there's so much information that people need to think about, and they are just like, forget it. I'm not doing it. I'm just gonna do what I gotta
Yeah.
do, and whatever happens, happens. You know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I know, and I suppose that is a huge challenge right now. Realistically speaking, I think it's how complicated and overwhelming kind of being able to. There's no simple, oh, I can just do this one thing. I can click this button, and I'm safe. I'm secure. And I
mm,
suppose this kind of leads on to my next question, because we see a lot of trends of the fact that it's more of these unified products or unified platforms that are kind of saying, oh, you can come from one spot, and you know, this is ultimately going to solve most of your problems. You don't necessarily have to use this and this and this and this and this. And you're obviously very active. You kind of, you know, you're advisor for a few businesses. You've had good visibility of a variety of big businesses that you've worked with as well. So I mean, what are your predictions from that front? Do you think it's kind of working with more of the unified products, or is there anything else that you think might be kind of trending that's going to be arguably that hot topic we see everyone talking about?
I think, you know, I keep trying to wrap my head around computing, quantum
Yeah.
computing, because what it is basically, right, is the ability to do a few tasks at the same time much faster and solve them quicker, right? That's basically, for the layman term, that's what this computing meaning, right? The
Yeah.
speed and the ability to do tasks at the same time at an incredible speed. And I think that for me, the part that is scary is that I don't see the authorities uh, doing anything to control it, right? Yes, there's the GDPR in Europe, the privacy uh, authorities, they're trying to, but I think that what scares me is that we're not doing enough to curb that. We're not doing enough to stop it, to put more cybersecurity frameworks to contribute to development and best practices of frameworks that organizations can use. Because look, it's not only about you, and that's what I tell people. You can be as careful as you can or should, but someone else has your information, and if they're not diligent about doing their work, um, containing your information, your private information properly, then you can do whatever you want. If look, a few years ago, one of the big credit bureaus here in the States, right? I'm talking about in the late 2017 or 18 or whatnot, one of the credit bureaus were hacked, right? And those are the ones that's supposed to safeguard my information that I didn't even give it to them to begin with, right? Because they collected. So now my information is out there. So
Yeah.
I think it's what we need to do as not individuals only, but also uh, the bigger and smarter people than us should uh, have some policies of how our information needs to be governed and maintained and protected with government agency, with insurance agency, with hospitals, with DMV, with Department of Motor Vehicle, with all of those. And I think for me, unless there are serious public policies to advocate for better cybersecurity policies and regulation and work with government organizations to create those policies to enhance cybersecurity awareness, thieves are going to have easier time. You know, that's
Yeah.
my thinking.
So I feel like the conclusion of most of this is times are still very scary, and there's still a lot more that needs to be done. But I suppose it's that creating awareness, and it's like I say, kind of what you've spent a lot of your career doing is supporting businesses, and I think kind of when you're taking your own experience into account and naturally trying to make a positive difference for other people, that's a pretty important thing to to have been able to leave as your legacy, I suppose. But I mean, kind of with that in mind, to kind of close the podcast, you've had an incredible career, and I know you still kind of out there and doing bits in the advisory and supporting businesses with issues such as this. But if you were to kind of look back and say, here's kind of I've done X, Y, and Z, but here's one bit of advice I'd love to throw out the world and basically say, this is kind of what I would. I suppose is one of the biggest learning curves or most helpful things that you've maybe done. What would you kind of throw out there, should we say?
I think that I always say, if at first you don't succeed at something, you're about average because we all are, right? Try to do something, right? And don't give up, But I'm not talking about if you have a passion, stick to it and go to it. Stick to your context of why you do things, right? And it's a little trick that I have for myself. When I do things, I try to create kind of like the results, the purpose, and the why I'm even doing what I do, right? So if I focus on uh, the results are things that at the end of the day, I would want to measure if I accomplish them or not. It could be a simple yes or no questions, right? The purpose is kind of in a way, how am I going to get those results? And the context, which is that's for me what I would want to leave behind is the why we even do what we do. And it's not because of the money. Money is a result. It's education is a result. It's a lot of those are, we got to be careful to look at the right thing. And the context is why. And for me, the why is a legacy of security and living
Yeah,
comfortably. And comfortably, I don't mean necessarily money. I mean comfortably, like living your life as safe as you can. Look, you can live in a bubble, right? We can't. So if my why is living legacy of us living healthy and secure life. Why? Because that's going to create legacy for my family for generations. People are going to be less uh, overwhelmed with information that's irrelevant, relevant, worry. They're going to live their life with ease and security. And I will, always look for challenges, and always, that's why I keep looking for all kinds of companies I can get involved with to help and bring them back to the next level so that we can really bring it all out there and create a better place and leave this place a better place than where we found it. So that's kind of
yeah.
how I look at that.
No, no, it's fantastic, and obviously, what a legacy that it is that you've been leaving so far, and I'm sure still many exciting things ahead. But well, thank you so much for your time today. It's
Hmm.
been a pleasure speaking with you. It's so great to have you on, and yeah, all the best.
Absolutely. I really appreciate your time and getting me on board and making my voice sound out there, and call for people to stay aware and enjoy doing what they're doing while they're being proactive and careful. So I appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.